He's Frederick Richard, Olympian medalist with Team USA gymnastics team this past summer out in Paris. Fred, appreciate you taking the time, man. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. Obviously, New England's my home. In Denver right now and about to do a show, but I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we know Gold Over America tour is taking you all across the country. We'll get into that. We'll get into you growing up in Stoughton and growing up in Massachusetts. I just want to start with like almost 2 months removed from Paris. Has that excitement of that experience, that achievement of winning bronze and everything you did with your squad worn off yet? Or is it still just absolute enamored with excitement still?
Yeah, it's hard for it to really fully go away because, I mean, it like obviously that moment, that experience was amazing, but then the doors that open after that and kind of the new world you're in of kind of all the things that you wanted to do with growing the sport, getting more eyes, getting more opportunities starts to actually happen. So I'm excited about like this next stage, this next level.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. I love you bring that up. You go to Frederick Flips on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and you're big on putting as much exposure on men's gymnastics as possible. You mentioned the doors that open. I mean, what doors have opened for you? Just 20 years old, participated in the Olympics, the youngest member of a U.S. gymnastics team on the men's side since 72. What comes from that after that experience out in Paris?
There's so much. It's just, I'm gonna have to start listing off a list, but I guess it starts with number one. Like every night, we're in an arena with 10,000 plus people and showing off the gymnastics and in our personalities. But then on the content side, the opportunity side, the other pro athletes I'm meeting and connecting with, the other opportunities to work with brands and tell stories and kind of prepare for the next level of. I'm getting very deep into sports media production and trying to start a production company and tell our stories. And there's just a lot of partnerships, a lot of brand opportunities, and a lot of future exposure that's definitely about to come.
No, I love that. For people that may not know your social channels, like you take ownership. You keep saying, I want more people to get into male gymnastics. I want more eyes on it, more exposure, more people to watch, not just the Olympics, but all these meets. When did that start for you? Like, how did your journey begin? And is that something you noticed growing up, being in gyms that there weren't as many male competitors, maybe not as many black competitors either, and that's something you want to change?
Exactly. I mean, I grew up in the gym, definitely feeling like the odd one out. And I knew what I was doing was very impressive. You know, it's like you're training 4 to 6 hours a day. You're putting in the work. You're becoming a monster. But like, who knows that? Who's seen that? And that's kind of when I got obsessed with like, okay, this sport is amazing. Our story is amazing. We're like very athletic. Like gymnasts do crazy stuff. Who moves their body this way? And it's like, how do we start getting more people to see that? How do I get more people to see my story? And so I got really passionate because when I realized I think I can become an Olympian one day, I can become one of the best in the world. Hopefully, the best in the world eventually. I want the world to know that, and not just everybody to just keep going on with their lives and not notice it. So I've gotten very passionate about growing the sport and growing the viewership.
Yeah, I love how you do that balance too of the creative TikToks you have, like trying to get into your new Michigan gear or going into those YouTube videos of, hey, I'm bringing Alex Orgy and Jaden Bullock in with me, a collegiate wrestler, a collegiate quarterback for the Michigan Wolverines, and I'm going to see how they can hang in the gym. You mentioned that though of, it got to a point you're like, hey, I can be one of the best in the world. Growing up in Stoughton, Massachusetts, how did you get into gymnastics? And then how did it click for you, Fred, that you were like, oh, I can go to college for this, and also I think I could compete on the world stage.
Yeah, so I started gymnastics at 4 years old. My sister's a year older than me, and she was in gymnastics, which a lot of younger girls are in gymnastics. But I'd go to the gym picking her up, and I'd see all these kids flipping, and I'm like really young, and I'm thinking like, I guess this is like the normal, like being upside down and stuff. I should probably start learning how to do it the same way you start learning how to walk. So I'd be like chucking flips out home and stuff, and my parents were like, "All right, he's gonna kill himself. We got to put him in." And so that's how I started, and I loved it. Like from the very beginning, it's like you're just challenging yourself. Can you get a backflip? Can you add a twist? Can you flip off this 8 foot bar? Can you do these crazy stuff? And it's kind of like ninja training or like felt like Spider Man, And I just fell in love with the sport. And then I'd say when I got older, probably about 10 years old, I started realizing like, okay, I might be pretty good at this. I'm not the best, there's a lot of kids way better than me, but I realized, if I work really hard and I can see the kids that are better than me in my gym, if I just start doing way more than them all the time, I just start climbing and I'm just leveling up and I just fell in love with that. And then you realize you're 14, 15, and the Olympics might be possible if you really give everything every day. That's when the diet changes, the sleep changes, the mindset of trying to become the best in the whole sport.
I love that you talk about that obsession mindset. What's the sleep like? What's a diet? Let me hear, man. Watch your videos. You're yoked, so I got to hear this. What is that
Yeah.
like?
All right, sleep is minimum 8 hours a day. I think no excuses for like six. And when I was in high school, I was getting like six because trying to balance schoolwork. But I realized sleep is best recovery, so that's number one. Diet. It's actually interesting. A lot of people are surprised by my diet. So I don't eat any red meat. I eat just lots of chicken, fish, salmon, all that stuff, but not really any red meat. And then I don't really eat any added sugars. So basically, trying to get all natural products and just fuel the body really healthy. But yeah, it makes a big difference because I used to eat terrible when I was younger, and I can feel the difference now, and I'm way healthier, way less injuries. So that's diet, and then gymnastics training is give everything every day, like six hours in gymnastics training, another 2 to 3 in content and in creating and business and all those. And I mean, the goal is to change the sport, so you basically just give everything every day.
Hey, man, you're on the right track. I love that obsessive mindset. You point out, too, the less injuries. What was that like battling through that Achilles injury you had in Paris, but still pushing through and having your floor routine, going through all that? But something where you need so much explosion, obviously, from your feet up, but to get over that Achilles injury you were going through.
Yeah, I think that's like a great test of being one of the best athletes. It's not really about can you, be ready for that competition, or it is about that. It's how do you create a plan to get rid of all your problems while climbing, trying to be in peak shape. So it's like, how am I trying to train in peak shape while not put much stress on my Achilles? That was a hard challenge to figure out. You have to create a whole new training plan, get very creative on how I'm gonna do way more because I still need to do so much to be at peak shape.
Mhm.
Way more routines. I basically started using softer landings, seeing my trainer like 2 hours a day and strategizing how to strengthen it, but how to recover it. What's the best recovery techniques with icing, with needling, with cupping, with massaging. And you just have to really push your mind. It's a mental strategy game over physical push your body game.
Yeah, it's definitely a maturation, a marriage of the two. I have to ask, like watching your high bar routine as well. Like you mentioned, it's like being a ninja, it's being Spider-Man. I was blown away by the
Yeah.
moves you guys do. Is that one of the best feelings when you crush a high bar routine and you absolutely stick the landing and then you hear the whole crowd roar?
Yeah, you can like feel it in your bones, in like your heart. Like you do it, and when you know it's like that was near perfect, that was exactly what we needed to make history, or like this is all that work that you put in the years before amounted to that one routine, and it worked out. I mean, like the satisfaction and like you just feel like a dog. You're like, okay, I really put on when it matters. Like I'm really proud to be able to say I can do that.
Yeah, and what was the experience like as well? Pommel Horse King, also from Massachusetts. You guys putting on a show and putting the U.S. back on the map in men's gymnastics. How is that overall experience where there's an individual that we talk about a lot, but you all as a team stepping up, shining through, and absolutely crushing the competition as well for the U.S.?
Yeah, it's crazy because it feels once you're like so driven to this thing that's bigger than you, which is obviously the team and just your country. It's nice because you give everything and it kind of just like carries you. Like through that whole competition, it felt like some like a bigger power was doing the routines for us. It's like we did the preparations beforehand, and now you kind of just you represent something bigger than yourself and just let it do the work. It's kind of like it almost feels like the five of us are doing the routines together versus just you or everybody in the crowd, your whole family, everybody's doing it with you, and it makes it way easier and more satisfying.
I like how, when we first started talking, you mentioned the doors that open, but you go to Paris, you come back home to Massachusetts. What was that like? You probably leave where people in the gyms throughout Mass and around Stoughton know who you are. Now everyone
Yeah,
knows who you are. What was that like coming back home after that Paris experience?
yeah. I mean, it's definitely what you dream of as a kid. Like, oh, I want to walk down the street and people know who I am and know what I've done. And it's interesting. It's cool to get used to because people are going to recognize you, and it's awesome the people that were in your life like 5, 10 years ago, like teachers in elementary school or just people like your mailman. People that have just known you, but you disconnected with for a while, but then they see what you were doing back then, which was still gymnastics. They knew you were amazing and going to be something. It kind of all played out right, and they're all just proud of you. And so that's really nice.
And you guys are now going across the country in the Gold Over America tour. You eventually will be in Boston for 2 nights, October 6th and October 7th. They added a date because so many people want those tickets. What does that mean to you, a kid that grew up in Stoughton, Mass, to perform in Gold Over America in TD Garden in Boston, Mass?
I mean, it's huge because I remember being in TD Garden probably about a year ago in the crowd and thinking like, wow, I wonder how it feel to actually be on the court or be on the stage and everybody's watching you. And then 1 year later, you're in that situation, and it's my state. This is where I grew up. It feels like a definitely just like a full celebration of everything I've done amounted to something, and I'm just thankful that it has.
We're thankful too. And when you go through the Gold Over America tour, as someone that wants to continue to push men's gymnastics on the biggest stage, how important is the fan interaction that people get over this tour for you, where it's not just going to watching a show, which is awesome. It's gymnastics meets a concert. It's amazing. But also for the fans to get up close and get to know you and your fellow, Olympians you're with.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think based on the results from the last shows that we've done, I mean, the fans love it. They really do feel closer and like they know our stories better, and the entertainment we give them on the shows is pretty cool, I will say. But I feel like everybody leaves this place happier, feeling inspired, feeling impressed, and I mean, I'm proud to be part of making that happen.
Man, Fred Richard, appreciate you taking the time. Again, Olympic medalist with the men's gymnastics team for Team USA over pairs. Just 20 years old. You're only getting started, man. I appreciate you taking the time. We look forward to seeing you October 6th and 7th in Boston, Massachusetts at TD Garden. And if they're coming to your city, check it out. Gold Over America Tour. You'll see Fred Richard, Simone Biles, Jordan Childs, and so many more putting on a show. Fred, thanks for taking the time, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.